The dealer gave her $7,400 for the car. She'd owned it 6 years, never missed an oil change, had the timing belt done at 85,000 miles. Dealer recommended, cost her $780. New tyres the year before, full brake job 8 months prior. The car was cleaner under the hood than most cars half its age, and she knew it. She left with $7,400. The car went on the lot 9 days later for $13,900. I know because I put it there. What she didn't know, what almost nobody knows when they walk into that appraisal, is that the folder of receipts sitting in her glove compartment was worth somewhere between $1,800 and $2,400 more than the number they handed her. The timing belt, the tyres, the brakes, every one of those receipts was a line item on our internal reconditioning estimate. We zeroed them out when we didn't see documentation. We didn't tell her that. We didn't have to. That's what this video is. I spent 15 years inside this industry, stood at the auction lane, sat in the finance office, watched managers cut trade-in numbers in 90 seconds on vehicles that deserved more because the owners couldn't prove what had been done. I left because I couldn't keep watching it happen, and now I put the information on camera. What I'm walking you through today is the exact reconditioning checklist that determines your trade-in appraisal before a single number is spoken. 5 specific maintenance receipts. What they're worth to the dealer's budget. What they're worth to your number. And one thing at the end that most people completely miss about how to present them, because the receipts alone aren't enough. Stay with me on that last one. It's the part that dealers would genuinely prefer you never figure out. The used vehicle market in the United States runs roughly $840 billion a year. That number sounds like an abstraction until you understand where the margin actually comes from. It doesn't come from the sticker price. That's negotiated down. It comes from the back end, reconditioning, financing, service contracts, and the trade-in. The National Automobile Dealers Association's own data shows the average dealer earns more gross profit on the reconditioning and resale of a used vehicle than on the front-end sale price. Your trade-in is not a favour they're doing you. It's raw material for their next profit cycle. They buy it as low as they can justify. They spend as little as possible to make it lot ready. They sell it for everything the market allows. Here's the mechanism most people never see. Before they hand you an appraisal number, someone walks your vehicle and builds an internal reconditioning estimate. Not a guess, a line item budget. Timing belt unknown? Add $600, transmission fluid unverified, add $250 as a buffer. Brakes unclear, add $400, tyres marginal, add $700, unknown service history as a catch-all, add another $200 to $400 for whatever surfaces on the lift. That total doesn't go on a piece of paper they show you. It comes directly off your trade-in number. You never see it. You just see the number. 5 receipts collapse that budget. Not eliminate every deduction. The car's actual condition still matters. The mileage still matters. But 5 documented items can swing a trade-in appraisal by $1,500 to $2,000 on a vehicle worth $10,000 to $18,000. Those aren't estimates. That's what I watched happen, trade after trade, for 15 years on the floor. The first receipt is the one that moves the most money, and it's also the one most people have never thought to keep. Timing belt service documentation. For any vehicle running an interference engine, which covers most Japanese-made 4-cylinders and a large portion of European models, the timing belt is a catastrophic failure risk if it snaps. When it goes, the piston and valve collide. The engine is done, not repairable in any realistic sense. Done. A dealer appraising a vehicle with 85,000 or 90,000 miles and no timing belt record has to assume one thing. That belt may be original. Replacing it at shop rate runs $450 to $950, depending on the vehicle. They're not paying that out of profit. They're taking it off your number. A receipt from a dealership, an independent shop, anywhere with a date, your VIN or plate, and the mileage at time of service, removes that line completely. The reconditioning budget drops by $600 on a mid-range vehicle the moment they see it, not after negotiation, before the first number is spoken. If you're not sure whether your vehicle has a timing belt or a chain, look it up right now. One search: your year, make, model, plus timing belt or chain. Chains are generally maintenance-free. Belts have replacement intervals, usually between 60,000 and 105,000 miles, depending on manufacturer specification. If yours has a belt and it hasn't been done, and you're trading within the next 12 to 18 months, do it. The math almost always returns more than the cost. One thing to understand about how this plays psychologically: that first receipt you hand the appraiser sets the tone for every receipt that follows. When the first document they see is a timing belt service, the most expensive line item on their internal checklist, the entire mental frame of the appraisal shifts. This car was maintained by someone who knew what they were doing. That assumption carries into every other number they build. The second receipt most people skip because they've been told the fluid is lifetime. Transmission fluid service documentation. Manufacturers market lifetime transmission fluid because it costs them warranty claims to admit otherwise. In practice, transmission fluid breaks down. It oxidizes. It loses viscosity. It goes dark. A transmission running on degraded fluid will eventually fail, and a used transmission on a front-wheel drive vehicle costs $1,800 to $3,500 installed at dealer shop rate. A dealer who can't confirm fluid service on a high-mileage trade-in adds a contingency buffer to their appraisal estimate. Not as large as the timing belt deduction, but real. And it stacks. The service itself, a fluid drain and refill, or a full flush depending on your vehicle's specification, runs $80 to $200 at most independent shops. The receipt, showing VN and mileage, removes the budget line. On CVT-equipped vehicles specifically, this documentation carries even more weight. CVTs have a known reputation for failure, and dealers who take in a CVT without service history apply a heavier discount than they would on a conventional automatic. A documented fluid service on a CVT won't erase that skepticism entirely, but it reduces it, and reduced skepticism means a higher number. The third is the one they check in the first 30 seconds of the walk around, before they even look at the engine: brake job documentation. A dealer can tell the condition of a brake job by looking at the wheels. They do it instinctively. If the rotor surface shows scoring, if the pad thickness is visible and marginal, that's an immediate line item. A full four-wheel brake service, pads and rotors, at dealer shop rate runs $600 to $1,100 depending on the vehicle. That number is inflated by their own labour rate and parts markup. It's not what it costs them to do it. It's what they budget against your trade-in. If your brakes were done within the last 18 months or 15,000 miles, and you have the receipt, that deduction goes to zero. If they need work now, do them before you trade. A $400 brake job at an independent shop documented eliminates a $700 to $1,100 line from their reconditioning estimate. That's not a cost. That's a return on a documented investment. Here's what I want you to understand about this one specifically. Brakes are the only item on this list that the appraiser can partially evaluate by eye during the walk-around. When you hand them a recent brake receipt before they look at the wheels, you've already answered the question they were about to ask themselves. That's a different dynamic than handing them documentation after they've already formed a suspicion. The sequence matters. I'll come back to this. Now, before the last two receipts, and I mean this, I need to say something directly. Most people watching this right now are not planning to trade a car this week. Some of you are months out. Some of you are years out. It doesn't matter. The time to start collecting this documentation is now. because by the time you're sitting across that appraisal desk, it's too late to go back and get receipts you didn't keep. Everything I'm walking through in this video, and more, is organised in one place. The Dealer Vault is a digital guide built specifically for this, a pre-appraisal checklist that mirrors what a dealer manager actually uses when they walk your vehicle, the exact language to use at the appraisal desk, and what to say when they bring back a number that's lower than it should be. The link is in the description. Pull it up, bookmark it, use it before you use a dealer lot. The fourth receipt is the one dealers almost never bring up when they explain why your number is lower. They don't bring it up because they'd rather you not know what they're accounting for. Coolant flush documentation. Engine coolant degrades. It becomes acidic over time. Acidic coolant eats aluminum, specifically the water pump, the radiator end tanks, and the heater core. A heater core replacement on a mid-size sedan can run $700 to $1,200 in labour alone, because accessing it requires pulling the dashboard. A water pump failure on an interference engine, if the water pump is driven by the timing belt, can destroy the engine when it seizes. Dealers who appraise high-mileage vehicles with no coolant service documentation add a buffer to their estimate. It's not the largest line item. But here's the thing about reconditioning budgets. They compound. 5 unknown items, each with a $150 buffer, is $750 off your trade-in before a single visible problem is found. A coolant flush runs $100 to $180 at most independent shops. The receipt removes the line. More than that, and this is the part people miss, a coolant flush receipt tells the appraiser something about the owner that no other receipt quite says. Changing coolant is not something most drivers even know needs doing. A person who had it done and kept the receipt is a different category of vehicle owner. That distinction registers. It changes the entire posture of the appraisal. The fifth receipt is the most counterintuitive one on this list, and the one with the highest potential return on investment. Tyre replacement documentation. A car goes on the front line lot with acceptable tyres, or it doesn't go on the front line lot. That's not a preference. That's a reconditioning standard. Worn tyres below 4/30 seconds of tread depth are a guaranteed reconditioning cost before any retail sale. A set of 4 replacement tyres for a mid-size vehicle through a dealer's preferred vendor at their billing rate runs $600 to $900. That entire number comes off your appraisal if your tyres are worn and you don't have documentation of recent replacement. If you replaced your tyres within the last 2 to 3 years, Costco, Discount Tyre, anywhere, that receipt removes the budget line. If your tyres are genuinely near the end right now, replace them before you trade. Most people resist this. Spending $400 to $500 on tyres 2 months before trading a car feels like burning money. It isn't. It eliminates $600 to $900 from the reconditioning deduction. And it does something else, something the receipt alone doesn't capture. A car with a fresh set of tyres doesn't get appraised as a potential wholesale unit. It gets appraised as a retail car. That category distinction can shift the base appraisal number by more than the tyre cost itself, because a retail-eligible car is worth more to the dealer than a vehicle they might have to push to auction. The tyres aren't just about the tyres, they're about which column your car lands in during that first walk around. Now, the folder. The receipts matter. The folder matters more. Don't walk in with a stack of paper. Don't walk in with your phone. A manila folder, receipts in chronological order, oldest in back, most recent on top, with a small sticky label on each one identifying the service and the mileage. Timing belt, 67,450 mipodam. Coolant flush, Nov 2023. Tyres, all 4, March 2024. Clean, organised, ready. When the manager or lot technician arrives to walk the vehicle, you hand them the folder before they touch the car. This is not a small detail. This is the entire strategy. There is a psychological principle called anchoring. Whatever piece of information a person receives first becomes the reference point against which everything else is measured. In an appraisal, if the appraiser builds their mental reconditioning budget before they see your documentation, they start high and work down under pressure, only if you push back. If they receive your documentation first, the budget starts at zero and only builds up for actual, documented problems that your receipts don't cover. The folder anchors the appraisal before a word is spoken. Dealers know this. They have their own version of it. They try to anchor you with a low number and see if you accept it. You're just using the same mechanism first, and you're doing it with evidence. When they bring back the appraisal number, you ask one question. Can you walk me through the main condition adjustments? Not aggressive, not confrontational, direct. If they deducted for something you have documentation for, you pull that receipt, hand it across the desk, and ask them to recalculate. Most managers, when they're looking at a receipt they can't dispute, will move the number. Not every time, but consistently enough that the ask is always worth making. The worst they can say is the number stands. You're no worse off than if you'd never asked. What just happened in this video is not common knowledge. The reconditioning line item budget, the psychological mechanics of the folder, the category shift from wholesale to retail. None of this is taught anywhere that benefits you. It benefits the dealer that you don't know it. You now know how the internal estimate is built. You know which 5 items account for the majority of the budget assumptions on unknown history vehicles. You know what each receipt is worth in specific cost lines they eliminate. And you know how to hand them over in a way that uses anchoring before the negotiation even starts. That's not a minor advantage. Most people walk into that appraisal desk knowing their car's colour and their payoff amount. The dealer across from them has appraised hundreds of vehicles. They know the reconditioning cost of every service item on your car. They know your vehicle's auction value if the retail deal doesn't close. They know the comparable retail comps in your market to the dollar. You walked in with a folder. The next time someone you know mentions they're trading a car, send them this video, not as a favour to this channel, though it helps, but because they're 3 weeks from sitting across from someone who has done this 1,000 times and they deserve to walk in armed. Every person who watches this is one fewer easy trade-in for a dealer's reconditioning budget. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of this. Next video, what happens inside the finance office after the trade-in number is signed. 4 specific products the F&I manager will present as protecting your investment. The dealer's cost to offer them under $40. The price they charge $2,000 to $3,500, and the exact language they use to make you feel like declining is a financial risk. That one is worth waiting for. Everything shared here is general consumer information. Always have a qualified mechanic perform a full pre-purchase inspection before buying any used vehicle.